Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the East Riding of Yorkshire series. Together with the unparished city of Hull, it forms the county of the same name. There's 172 parishes here. Which one are we in today? Hello out there everybody, welcome back to the East Riding of Yorkshire. Now today I'm beginning at what looks like a lake or a little pond. That is neither. It's not a lake and it's not a pond. That is part of the former Pocklington Canal, and it stops just here where there's a footpath and a bridge which will take us into today's village. This is known as the Bilby Arm. Welcome to the parish of Bilby. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Just a forewarning before we get into this. This episode and the next 3 in the East Riding were recorded while I was suffering from a little bit of a sore throat, so hopefully I sound okay. Bielby is a lovely little village situated about 4 miles south of Pocklington in the East Riding of Yorkshire and within the Vale of York. It lies close to the Pocklington Canal. Spelt as Belebi in the Domesday Book, the name Bielby derives from the Old Scandinavian personal name Beli and means farmstead or village of a man called Beli. Bielby has had a modest amount of notable people throughout the centuries. One famous man was the 19th century sundial maker John Smith. Until quite recently, residents named Bielby lived in the village. The last Bielby was an Alice Bielby who formerly taught in the village school during the mid-20th century. Some Bielbys became famous for their glass-blowing skill. In fact, Bielby goblets, a type of glass container, boast the highest auction prices of any goblet sold in recent history. About 2 miles northeast of Bilby, on the edge of Hayton, lie the ruins of an ancient Roman military fortress, which includes a well and the remains of a bathhouse. The University of Durham excavated the site between 1995 and 1998 with assistance from local residents and University of Leeds students. Let's see what we can discover as we walk around the place. We start on Mill Lane at the Bilby Arm. This was a stretch of the former Pocklington Canal, which at some 160 metres in length was a place for canal boats to moor. Unlike the Melbourne Arm, this is no longer navigable. A beck runs close to the Bilby Arm. From time to time this can flood. The last time it did so was in June 2007, but I'm led to believe it wasn't greatly damaging, thankfully, only coming up to the doorsteps of some homes. It used to drive an old flour mill. That's the building you can see on the right of this shot. It's a late 18th century building and it's Grade 2 listed, as is the adjoining house. Can you see the waterfall next to it? Isn't that just lovely? I was quite taken by this little humpback bridge too. Both the beck and sections of the former Pocklington Canal provide a water supply for a geese farm on the edge of the village. So after walking down Mill Lane, we come to the village itself. Now this is another linear village, meaning I can't walk around this one in a circle. I've got to walk down to the other end and walk straight back again. In a way, easy, but it would be nice if there was a circular route round. But yeah, nothing much I can do about that. So I've parked at the end of Mill Lane where the Bilby Arm is, and it's just a case of walking south all the way to the other end and walking back again. So let's see what we can find. Bielby is mostly residential and most of the homes are modest in size. There's been a few bits of infilling here and there. Most homes in Bilby are named instead of numbered and have signs displayed either on their exterior walls or in their yards. One house in Bilby is proudly named Bielbyville. The village is small and clings to both sides of a narrow lane. It's got no shops or schools, although it used to have a national school which was erected in 1871. In 1891, Bielby had as many as 195 inhabitants. That's pretty large by all accounts. The village was formerly a township of Hayton, a much bigger village just to the south of Pocklington, which is 2.5 miles away. Just before we get to the church, which is a former chapel of East Hayton, we see a postbox. There are 2 of these in Bilby. Look out for the other one later. It's much more notable because it's a Victorian postbox, signified by the letters VR. So there is the odd side street off the main road. Gailcar Lane, for example, is one of them, where the postboxes I've just shown you. And on that corner, there's a church. Now, I'm not expecting this one to be open, but if it is, great, we can have a look inside. If not, it's outside only. So let's see, is it open or not? This is the Anglican Church of St Giles, which dates back more than 900 years. This was designated as a Grade 2 listed building in January 1967. Inside, there's an ancient blue-coloured medieval wall painting of St Christopher. I would have liked to have got inside this one to see both the painting and the box pews, which according to my sources are among the best preserved in the East Riding of Yorkshire. Alas though, it was not to be, because it was locked. The church has recently been restored, a process which uncovered 2 arches on the outside of the church and a pillar and skeleton on an inside wall. The pillar and the arches would have originally been part of a larger structure. Located on the left just inside the churchyard is a war memorial. This is for both world wars and takes the form of a simple stone column with a cross at the top of a 2-step base. The names are listed on a white marble plaque in black lettering underneath. So next up we've got a little garden. I don't think this has got a name. It's just like a little peace garden opposite the church with some flower planters. There's a bench with no dedication on it, but it looks like a nice spot just to sit and rest your legs for a moment. Let's talk a bit about John Smith, the sundial maker, next. He was the son of a farmer, and because his father needed his son's labour on the farm, most of his work took place at night, much of it by candlelight. One of his sundials can be seen on the side of Bielby's Wesleyan Chapel, where Smith was a lay preacher. This opened in 1837. Now residential, the chapel is called Wesley House, and it's a Grade 2 listed building. Continuing down the road, the parish notice board we find at the side of a wooden bush shelter. I was a little surprised by this because I'd have thought the size of Bilby would mean it was not on a bus route. Nonetheless, the X36 stops here, according to Google. Next is a pub which is long-term closed. This is the College Arms, named as such because in the 19th century, the warden and fellows of Merton College, Oxford, were lords of the manor. When it was open, this was apparently good for food. So here we have Bielby's phone box. This one's got the defib machine in it. Not your normal standard red phone box, this one. Although we are in the East Riding, so it should be white really, that creamy colour white. I think they're sort of restricted more towards Hull, aren't they? They tend to be red everywhere else. Almost at the end of the village now, we come to Stoneleigh Residential Home next. This has been going for over 30 years. It's a modern detached residence set in 4 acres of manicured gardens, which boasts some wildlife, including some exotic aviary birds. Next up, we have what looks like an old workshop. I've no idea what this would have been used for, or if indeed it's still in use. The names of 2 houses over the road, though, could give us a clue. These are Joiner's Cottage and Spindle Cottage. After digging through some records, I found Bilby used to have a joiner by the name of John Layton sometime in the late 19th century. Primarily, though, Bilby has always been about farming. Given the amount of farm vehicles I saw here, I'd say it still is. Our last stop on the walk is this bench, which was donated by the residents of Bilby in 2004. After this, the road runs off out into the East Yorkshire countryside. And that's the end of the village, people. It runs out into the countryside after that. I know if you turn left at the end there, that'll take you towards Everingham, because that's the way I drove into the village. But apart from that, there's nothing else Bielby wise along this road. Just notice this though before we walk back up. Flood. I don't know whether this village is prone to flooding, but that just looks like a temporary sign anyway. So I don't know, maybe there was a flood across the road here at some point in recent times, but it's certainly not here now. And I would hope that a beautiful village like this is not prone to flooding on a regular basis. Okay, this one's far too small to give you a picture bit, but it will still get a rest of section. So as I walk back through the village, I'll take a few more shots and turn that into the rest of section, which is coming your way right about now. Now, before we put Bielby to bed, there's also something else we need to see in relation to the canal. Within its boundaries, just there's an old lock and another bridge, and that's where we're going to finish today's episode off. To the north of Bilby, on the road towards Thornton and Allerthorpe, you'll come across another stretch of the canal here at Coates Lock. This part of the canal is in water, but it's not part of the navigable section. If you look closely at the lock, you might notice it has stone in its chamber wall. This is unusual, and it may have been a way of using up leftover stone from another project. It was replicated after some remedial work in 1995. Right next to this is Coates Bridge. This has a connection to a previous East Riding episode. Both this and the lock were built in 1817 using bricks supplied by the Britton family's former brickworks at Newport, sited next to the Market Wheaton Canal about 17 miles away. Honestly, it's like a great big jigsaw puzzle doing this series. So many of the East Riding parishes have connections to one another. I'd imagine there's going to be plenty more yet. This might just be me, but I always think canal bridges are quite stunning architecturally. I need Nikki for this, because I'm pretty sure that this kind of thing would be right up her street. I'll probably be able to tell you a lot more about how these are built if Nikki was with me, but as it is, I'm on my own today. So yeah, you can just appreciate the bridge, Coates Bridge, and all the other canal bridges that look like it, and how wonderfully they're made. And speaking of wonderful, that's another adjective I would definitely use to describe Bielby, wouldn't you agree? It's one of those little gems hidden away in the East Yorkshire countryside, and there's a few more of those to come actually. In fact, the next one I'm going to is just the same as this. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot. This has been the parish of Bielby, and I'm out.